Well, I can't beat an intro like that. Hello and welcome to the new My Football Club podcast. I'm your host, Augustine Sasso. You can email me at augustine.sasso@myfootballclub.co.uk. This is a special show, and I apologize for not getting it out earlier. Now, last week I spoke with Tony Giles. Now, I talk at length with him about what he does, his history at the Fleet, some of the young lads coming up. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Here now is Mr. Tony Giles.
I've been supporting the club now probably for 35 years.
Wow.
So I'm sort of not as long as Chad Webster, but that's because he's older than me. But I throughout the sort of last 20 years, I've done various been engaged in various roles with the football club. But all of the roles that I did with the football club were all voluntary roles. So I did things like the public address, and for a little while I was involved in the Supporters Association, which is sort of the predecessor of the Fleet Trust. But then I took a step away for about, probably about eight or 9 years, to be perfectly honest, and let other people sort of take up the cudgels and progress things along. And then this season, I offered to just sort of help promote other areas of the football club, which is the I've known Mick Chatwin, who sort of acts as the secretary for the academy side and the reserves, and I've known Mick for some time. And I said, well, when you look at the coverage that the what you could call the intermediate level of the club is concerned, they don't really get a lot of coverage. Certainly at the sort of 16 and under age groups, and certainly at the women's age groups, there's quite a lot of enthusiasm to sort of promote themselves. And then when you go from 16 to sort of 18, the lads are very much left to fend for themselves in terms of getting themselves to games and being part of the football club. And it was sort of an area that was a little bit neglected from a publicity point of view. So I offered to sort of really just sort of try and raise the profile of that level, and in doing so I've sort of been involved in really just on the website really, just trying to put into people's consciousness the fact that this year we've been running a second 11 or a reserve side for the first time in many years, to give those first team players an opportunity to play football really, because unfortunately if you're in the first 11 or if you're in the first team squad and you're not selected, you don't really have an opportunity to play any football at all until really the start of this season, when we entered the slide into the Capital League. So really the philosophy there was that those players who didn't necessarily play on a Saturday in the Blue Square South could then at least get a game perhaps once every 2 weeks, supplemented by some of the under-18s, of the academy team. Sometimes it's a bit of a logistical nightmare, because it means that we're actually playing 2 games on the same day. So the reserves would play possibly on a Wednesday night, and then the reserves would play on a Wednesday night, and the academy side would play on a Wednesday afternoon. So this year we've got quite a large number of players signed up for the academy, something like 40 boys.
Wow.
So we're having to sort of, with that number, we're able to at least give everybody involved in the academy a game at least once every 2 weeks. And so we run like the reserve side, which really gives Liam the opportunity to give some of his fringe players who are not getting a regular game at least a run out, supplemented by the academy. And then the academy have got their own league, which is what they call the Football Conference Youth Alliance, which is a small league of 10 clubs of a very, very, very high standard, it has to be said. Clubs like Cambridge and Rushden and Oxford and clubs like that. are playing alongside ourselves and Dartford and Bromley, and they play mostly on a Wednesday afternoon. And most of those lads in the academy are really students. In addition to playing football, they're also encouraged to undertake further education. So a lot of the boys are actually at what they call Northfleet Technology College, and they're actually combining academic studies with the football as well. And their academic studies are scheduled so that on a Wednesday afternoon they're free to come and play football. And that, in essence, is managed by Ian Docker, who you may know, and maybe a name that you recognise. I don't know if it's someone that you do know. But basically Ian works with Liam and with Paul McCarthy in looking after those young lads. And then we have another side as well, which plays in the county league, which is the Kent Youth League, which again is quite a strong, quite a big league. But that's made up of 4 geographical divisions, and so we play clubs on a Sunday morning from sort of within about a 20-mile radius. And those are the younger lads. So those are the guys who are 17, not quite what we call second-year students, but certainly they're the first-year students. And we'll be looking to bring those on and bring them into the academy side that's playing in the Football Conference Youth Alliance.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I get that, and that's really fun work. I mean, I understood about the reserve. The academy, I did not know.
Right.
And I think that's great stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention the websites in my podcast. By the way, I appreciate your reports. I read them.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it. I think it's
well, I'm forwarding them on, obviously, as I do them. I forward them on to Keith. And I, not being a MYFC member myself, I don't get to see them. But I assume that Keith and Lorraine are arranging for those match reports to go onto the MYFC site. So it'd be good just to sort of put a bit of background in there as well, certainly in the podcast, and you can direct people to what where that information can be found. But I'd say those 3 teams are sort of what I call the intermediate level of the club. And then below that, we've got all of the, what we call the youth section, which is under 16s, under 15s, under 14s, under 13s, under 12s.
Yeah.
And that's all run by Ray Tuffield, that's all organised by Ray Tuffield and his committee. That's not something that I get involved in, but you can see we have, there's a lot of depth in there. And again, when you're getting down to this level, I mean, it's all people who are giving up their time freely, unpaid, to just try and perhaps unlock, possibly the next Jimmy Bullhard or someone like that. Someone that the club can sign and move the club forward and possibly attract the attention of a bigger club and bring some money into the football club. And in the meantime, we get some benefit out of it.
Well, I was going to ask you, there was the PACE
right.
And I'm assuming that was replaced by the Fleet Academy? Or?
It wasn't so much replaced. The terminology just seems to have changed over the last few years. Universally throughout football, they were sort of known as Performance Academy and Sporting Excellence or something. I can't remember what it actually stood for, but generally, more colloquially now, they've become known as academies. And we call it now the academy side, and generally most other clubs call them their academies. So they combine, they're still doing effectively what they have always done, which is combine both the football element with academic study. So in essence, we're preparing lads both perhaps to advance their football careers, but giving them that backup, you know what I mean, in terms of some sort of what we call further education over here in England, to prepare them for the real world, because as we know, becoming a full-time footballer is fiercely competitive, and not everybody makes it.
Yes, yes.
But there's no reason why, if you can continue with your education and still play football, you can still carve out a reasonable career as playing football in this country. So.
No, definitely, I agree, and that just sounds great. That just sounds great. I saw a couple of names, and I saw them in the stat sheet for the Fleet Academy, and then I saw them on the reserves, and so they look like players that have promise. Do you mind if we talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure, yeah. If you want to talk about, I can certainly, I've seen enough of them to, to certainly know, and there's some even, below that as well, who are some, what I call first-year students or first-year players who are starting to sort of knock on the door and make a move into that second-year team, and they're really starting to show promise as well. I think it has to be said this year that probably the overall depth of the team is not as strong as it was last year. We were fortunate. We managed to bring three players through from last year into the squad this year. Unfortunately, Aidan Sherlock's has suffered a lot from injury, and that probably set him back a little bit. But and Chris Henry's probably not first choice at the moment, because of the position he plays and the strength we've got in those positions. But to see players like Tom Fitt come through and pretty much be a first choice member of Liam's side now, and then we go back to last year, players like Michael West. There's every opportunity, if you show promise, to get the opportunity to move out of that academy side. And there might be one or two players that even end up, making their debuts this year, maybe. Which names did you sort of notice?
Sure. Well, it's Mr. Aziz.
Yes, Lonray Aziz, yeah.
Aziz. And then Adam and Aaron.
Adam and Aaron, yes.
So.
Well, for someone who's been who's quite a long way away, I think you've picked out probably three of the players that certainly are starting, to show a little bit of promise.
It might have been easy because I saw them score. I saw the names next to that they had scored goals. So those are kind of easy to pick out.
Yeah.
There might be players who, don't make the score sheet. But are just as good.
Yeah.
Better. So are these lads? They're all under 18, I'm assuming.
They're under 9. What they call under 19. We have an age group which says they have to be under 19 on the 31st of August.
Okay.
So there'll be 18 on 19, but most of them are under 18. Most of them are young enough to play in the FA Youth Cup, which again is a competition which says those lads have to be 18 or under on the 31st of August.
Yes, and I was following that run. Thank
yes,
you.
It was a good run.
Your reports, yes.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Well, it's becoming pretty commonplace now, which is a credit to Ian Docker and to Nick Chatwin, who were involved in obviously coaching and administering that side. That we're almost expecting those lads to get through to the first round proper of the FA Youth Cup, which is comparable really with what the first team did in the FA Cup. Mm-hmm. Getting through to that first round is significant because at that point that's where all the professional or the league clubs come in. So unfortunately we drew Brighton again.
Yes.
And Brighton have got quite a talented youth side this year. Including son of Darren Caskey, who used to play for Spurs. But and they put up a spirited performance. But I think that the difference in class told. But I think 3-0 probably flattered Brighton to a certain extent. But it's a measure of what's going on at that level that we do expect them almost to get through to that round of the competition. And we even have a sneaking hope that they might progress even further, as they did a couple of years ago when they actually beat Brentford.
Well, about these three players that I mentioned, is it too optimistic to say, is there a timetable for them that we might see them at, on the first team, or maybe the even more basic question: what positions do they play? Who they might resemble at a professional level? If those questions are.
Yeah, it's difficult really, because each of them are fairly individual.
Right.
Adam and Aaron, I don't know how much you know about Adam and Aaron, but they are in fact identical twins.
Oh.
So
Okay. No, didn't know that.
Yes.
Yes.
They're identical twins, and Adam pretty much plays as a direct centre forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He tends to be the target man. He's the tallest, probably the tallest of the front players. So he's the man that we look for to get the ball in the box, and he's one of those guys who can finish with his head, and he can finish with the ball at his feet. Aaron tends to play more down the right-hand flank, and tends to be more of a provider. Obviously can cut in, and we'll be looking obviously to get goals from that position. But he's had a bit of a slow start this year because unfortunately he had quite a long suspension, which carried over from last season. So we didn't really start seeing him until October. And then Lonray, he's not the tallest of players, but he's got lots of energy. He's got lots of ability on the floor, and he has an uncanny knack of popping up in those key areas of the field from which you can actually score goals. So that tends to be his strength. He tends to come in pretty much unnoticed and can certainly create opportunities for other players, bring other players into the game, but he can also score goals as well.
And are these local lads?
Yes, they're all. I wouldn't say they're not all from sort of the Gravesend and Northfleet, Ebbsfleet area.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are coming in, say, 20, 30 miles.